Okay, here we go. Here's some information.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Federal Postal Judge David-Wynn Folko Miller. I punctuate my name because it makes me into a fact. We have made this 3-hour presentation as a housekeeping video to show what the Federal Postal Service is all about. Report.
Whoops, hang on a second.
Claim it. How much work goes into putting together a lawsuit to be filed at the Bureau. We are the only country, we are the only state of the 50 states that uses a Bureau of Conveyance. On the mainland, you will be using just the clerk of the courts filing your documents, so the Bureau of Conveyance issues will not be an issue at this point. The rest of this document is going to be about our postal, banking, and grammar, and why we, as federal postal judges, have jurisdiction, and how this came about, and the history of the Hawaiian Islands, as well as the history of how the federal postal judgeships and federal postal court came about, so that the people of the world know that the Federal Postal Court is not an affiliation with the United States of America, United States of America Corporation, or any other country. We are an organization that deals with the Unity States of our World Corporation is our official title. And what that means is we are not a citizen of a country. We are two judges, Russell J. Gould and David Wynn Miller, that are correcting the grammar into a mathematical interface to show the people the tricks and the traps and the secrets of the courts, and how documentations must be created, how constitutions have to be written, how trusts have to be written, to have a better understanding or a better claim on the contracts that you write. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to the other part that I wish to show you. And here we go.
We're going to take this first sentence. This come to 2000. It's under coloring of the laws. And we're going to explain the sentence structure from the mortgage and how it is used as fraud. We're going to explain the sentence structure used by the attorneys to support the mortgage, how they are using fraud. And then we're going to explain how the banking system uses your money to make you both the borrower and the lender. So they don't have the jurisdiction or the venue to foreclose your property, only be a servicing agent for that conclusion. So what we're going to start with first is the parts of speech. Now the parts of speech are, we're going to use a numbering system 0 through 9. The numbering system is to identify each part of speech and how it appears between one word and another. And when we take documents and we go ahead and we put the numbers on top of the words, it's because to write the words out, to write the parts of speech word out on top of the words would take up too much time and would be too confusing. So we use a number substitution, which we will go through. Now we use 0 as a conjunction, and there's 2 conjunctions in the English language. And is a command, and the word or is an option. Now the word, the adverb, we gave a 1 because the adverb is used more than any other word, and the adverb is a modifier. It modifies the speed of which something is going to be modified at. Now the adverb will modify a verb, which is thinking or motion. So when you have a 1 in front of a 2, it's an adverb creating a verb. Now 3 is used for an adjective because an adjective represents color, opinion, and modifier, or modification, which means you're going to change something or try to influence an individual's ability to think by coloring it. If you color something and you change it, you're actually committing perjury because you're injecting your own prejudice or your opinions based on how you're going to describe it. And the word describe, de means know, ascribe means to write. So you're changing the condition to create a no written document. Now the adjective will always appear in front of a pronoun, just like we have the word black. Black is a fact. The word pen is a fact. You put black in front of pen and it means black pen. Black is an adjective. And it prejudices the word pen. You could use the word cobalt or carbon pen, because carbon is black. And it also is a shade of black. There's 1,200 shades of black, so you can basically say there's 1,200 ways to modify the word pen by just using one color, and color is an infinity of an opinion. Now, in the presentation of these numbers, the positional lodio fact, which is 5, 6, and 7, the position of a word identifies using the ABC alphabet. Now, this is between two individuals when they come together. They have to agree on what alphabet they're going to use. If we were in China, we'd be using the Chinese alphabet. If we were in Russia, we'd be using the Russian alphabet. Or in France or Germany, or if we were in Arabic or Indian. So the communication skills have to be established as to what alphabet you're going to be using. Then you have to take that alphabet and spell out your word. Now, if we're going to use the English language, this would be a pen, P-E-N. If we're going to write it in Hawaiian language, it would be called a penny, P-E-N-N-Y. If we're going to use it in Spanish, it would be called a scribola. So the spelling of the word would then change. And then we have to give a term to the word spelling and identify what the pen is used for. The pen is used for writing. So we're going to give it a definition that both persons agree upon in order to communicate with each other. Now the position is always followed by a condition of a lodio. Now lodio, L-O means location, D-I is original, and A-L is contract. That's called the parse of a word. Now if we're going to say for my pen, for your pen, for her pen, for his pen, for our pen, every time I change the lodio position of ownership, I change the definition of this pen. If I say for your pen, for my pen, for her pen, for his pen, I'm changing the preposition, the position, and I'm also changing the ownership. So therefore, the fact is going to continue to change. I can do this 900 different ways because there are 68 prepositions and 38 articles. When you multiply those out, they come to 2,000. Divided by 2 is 1,000. Minus about 100 words that would never come together and be used in a logical explanation. So therefore, there's about 900 logical explanations to identify this one object. When you take two objects using a prepositional phrase and you bring them together, now you have for the black of the pen, or for the pen of the black. You have black, which is a fact, and you have pen, which is a fact. Well, 900 times 900 is 810,000 variables that you can write this combination into. When you add a third word to this, for the black of the pen with the writing, now writing would then become a condition of a fact. And now we have 900 times 810,000 gives you 720 million.
Camera around so much.
For the black of the pen is with the writing on the paper. Now we have four words. 900 times 720,000 is 640 million variables. So you can see this can become a very large, complicated document when you're going into a mathematical certification to create a correct prepositional phrase or a correct structural sentence, better known as a parse syntax grammar. Now, number 8, the 5 of a position always comes in front of a 6, which always comes in front of a 7, which is a fact. Now, when we went to school, they taught us to use a preposition. pre meaning no position. An article, which is spelled A-R-T, which is a vowel and two consonants, which means no contract. So if you had no position and no contract, you'd have a noun, N-O-U-N, which is no-no. Now if you have a no-no, you have nothing. So they lied to us when they went to school. So we had to create a new paradigm of communications called the position loadial fact. The next factor was the past time and the future time. The past always comes before the future, and 8 always comes in front of 9. So it was a natural phenomena of the way that the numbers fall in, because an adverb comes before a verb, an adverb comes in front of an adjective, the adjective comes before the pronoun. The position, the loadial, and the fact are always kept together as a 5, 6, 7, and the past always comes in front of the future. Now the past can be a word used as from, or any word ending in ed would represent a past. If you have when we went to school, they taught us that a sentence must be one thought. So we have a one venue or one condition of thought, which is the correct parse, syntax, grammar. However, in the world of fraud, which means you're going to have going to the store from the house. Now we have two different time factors of from and to, which is now a lie, because now we have two conditions of time, and it's no longer a single thought sentence. So this generates, when you're into fraud, fiction, lies, perjury, false, guessing, presumption, assumption, these are the world of our court systems, attorneys, and lawyers. And this is what's been going on this planet for 8,500 years. Now on April 6, 1988, the mathematical interface on grammar was perfected by myself, and it was published. And 2 days after that, the United States Secret Service showed up at my door and said, "Do you realize what you've done? You've just disqualified every treaty, trust, and contract between 5,000 languages for 8,500 years." When the world learns of how this mathematical interface will correct the world, there will be a world reset on communication skills, banking, international contracts, trade agreements. And so it's going to impact the way the entire planet has to do business. Now, man has never gone to war over a math problem in the history of mankind. By bringing communication skills into a mathematical procedure where we have the values certified both frontwards and backwards in every single sentence that we write. Example, for the bridge is over the water. For the water is under the bridge. Over and under opposite prepositions in both sentences represent the same picture. Now if we drop the word for, which was a position, and we just say the water is under the bridge is over the water, the becomes an adverb making bridge to be a verb. Is an adverb making over to be a verb. The is an adverb making water to be a verb. There's no such thing as a water, over, or bridge verb, because of the modification which is represented by an adverb. All positions and all loadials, or all prepositions and all articles, when used as independent words, become adverbs. And therefore they create modification, which is your change and your perjury, and will then destroy the contents of your contracts. Now the second position we're going to do here is with the instructions on how a sentence is created. Now a sentence goes through, we use a minimum of 7 positions. We use the preposition for to start every sentence in this program, because for is the strongest of the positions to start a sentence out with. We've looked at all 68 positions, and we've looked at all 38 articles. And we've reduced the program to the words a, and, the, this, these. Sometimes we use the word through, T-H-R-O-U-G-H, or T-H-R-U. But this is the lion's share of 99% of the of the articles that are used in our grammar. Also, the word an appears in front of any word that starts with a vowel. That's one of the exceptions to the rules. Now, when you're constructing a sentence, The rules and regulations of constructing a sentence are the same rules and regulations that even a fiction court must go through to establish an individual's ability to stand trial. So what we've done is we have perfected that all sentences that are used in every one of our documents, and we average about 60 to 100 different sentences, but each sentence qualifies under the rules of what a court has to establish in order to be a court. And the very first thing a court must establish is the word knowledge. Does the person have the knowledge to understand what is being said to them? If I was speaking to you in Japanese or Chinese or Russian, and you only understood English, we wouldn't be able to communicate with each other. So therefore, we wouldn't have a knowledge communication between us. It would require us bringing in an interpreter to stand in and do the translations. But what we're doing here is the first thing that a court has to establish is your cause. What is the knowledge or educational limitations of all individuals in the courtroom? Once you have established that you have a knowledge, you then have a consequence, which would be of the. For the is your knowledge, of the is your consequence. And the consequence is going to be how many facts have you established through your knowledge. Once your knowledge is established as facts in your brain, it's like a computer. In order to bring any information out of your brain or out of a computer, you have to think. And thinking then becomes the verb of action. You have is as a singular, are as a plural. So the word thinking now becomes these are the only two verbs in the English language is and are. Running is not a verb. Jumping is not a verb. Driving is not a verb. Trespassing is not a verb. Parking is not a verb. You have to think before you can do these conditions of a fact. So when the sign says no parking, no is an adverb making parking into a verb. So they've lied, because you can never create the negative condition of any state. You can't create the negative condition of a fact. So by saying no parking, that's an oxymoron, and it's against the law. Now, when you say against the law, that's a prepositional phrase. Against means no contract. The is an adverb. Against is a preposition. The is an adverb making law a fact. So if you're against the fact and you're using no contract or no trespassing, no is an adverb making trespassing a violation of the use of that is a condition of state. It should say for the trespassing on this land is with the fee of the $5,000, or for the parking of the cars with the fee of the $500. These are performance contracts which are positive. If you have a positive performance contract, you then have the ability to say, I gave you a positive performance, you agreed to trespass, you agreed to perform, and therefore you have a duty through this performance contract. Now, after you establish your thinking capacity to move the fact backed up by the knowledge, you have to create a possessive. With is your position of a possessive. The possessive is used, we use the word claim because gold miners filed claims. They didn't file mortgages. They didn't ask for permission. When they discovered gold, which starts with the word AU, they have an authority. And so they filed gold claims. Then they had to make a decision on to what the claim is. Is it a positive claim or a negative claim? Did they have a damage, which is negative, or did they have a equity, which is positive? The second part, now that you've established with as a possessive, you now have a contract term using of the. And now you're going to go ahead and take this possessive and you're going to put it into a contract term to define the plus or negative of that contract term. This sentence could be as small as seven words or 7 facts, or as large as a 200-word sentence, which I place in all my documents. Just to show that when you're going through a mathematical procedure to get to the conclusion from the beginning of a fact, there is a path that you have to follow. Now, after you have a with of, you go back to another with, which is a possessive of the laws, rules, regulation, codes, duties. And then you have to assign the authorization of the word by. By is the position to give the authorization, the author, the authentic of who created this document, who wrote this sentence. And authorization always runs backwards. So the last word in the sentence becomes the authority. Now if I read this sentence backwards, by would become for, and of would become with, and with would become of, because those are the opposite prepositions, just like over, under, in, out, through, around. So if I read this for and authority of the laws, rules, regulations, and codes, now I can go back up, pick up my verb, is or are, with the contract terms of the possessive claim, with the consequential facts by the cause or the claimant's knowledge. In this case, we would have a claimant who would be the individual who would have the knowledge. So reading the sentence both frontwards and backwards has the same volition and the same sense as it did frontwards. And that's how you can certify that the sentence was written correctly in the first place. And what we do is, if you do grafting, now the easiest way to learn how to do sentence structure is to graft it. By taking all your positions and isolating those. See, now I have all the positions. Now I have the same lodio throughout. The only exception here is and, because we're in front of a vowel. But if this is going to be the, then it's going to be gender neutral. If it's this, it'll be specific first person. If it's these, it'll be specific plural. So as you're using, you can use the word a, which is also specific plural, as opposed to specific singular. You say for a cause of a consequence is with a possessive of the contract with a law by an authority. See, if I change the article, the sentence still makes sense because the article is going to show you in ownership. Ownership specific, first person, gender neutral, or plural.